How many of you have been to Finland? So nobody has. Okay, we have like three hands. How many people want to go to Finland? I have news for you. I organize, as mentioned, I organize React Finland. This is going to be at the end of May next year. I made the video, but I won't show it to you because I want to get to the talk. But we have amazing speakers and everything, and Finnish food. You come for the food. Then we do Freezing Edge live coding conference right after the React Finland, and we're planning a graphical conference for like October or November. But this is if you want to visit Finland and don't want to pay for it, just ask your boss to pay for a trip. So we're very happy to welcome you to Finland. One of the main things I do when I'm not working with the client is this Survive.js thing, which is a couple of books. And one of the important things is the blog. So here you can find about 100 developer interviews from different topics. So if you want to learn more about JavaScript or development, just read the blog posts. It's a lot of content. And this is actually another talk, but this is my homepage. So you can see I think I did my first homepage in 1996 or 98, and then I wanted to replicate that experience. So we remember what the web used to be like. But I think I should get to the main topic, which is the talk. So this time I'm going to discuss this topic of JavaScript. Where are you heading? Because we know the past, but you never know the future. And maybe from the past you can extrapolate some things. You can see some trends where we might be going. So that's what I try to achieve in this talk. And it's his fault that we're here in this room. So he spent around 9 to 5 or so. He spent 10 days implementing the first version of JavaScript. And well, we are sort of stuck with it. The name itself, it was a mistake because around that time, Java was the number one. So everyone is using Java programming language, which you likely know. And they wanted to do a marketing trick. So they did a language that wasn't like Java, that was more like Lisp or like other languages. But they put the name JavaScript to appeal to these Java developers. And it's language that lets us do this. And you know how this evaluates, so we get this na Batman, right? So we have this amazing language that's totally flexible, and we can do a lot with it. In 2011, 38% of sites used JavaScript. And today, it's like 75%. So 3 out of 4 sites use JavaScript, and that's a lot. Who remembers what it was like to be a web developer before NPM? Yeah, that's what I mean. So we're really old here. So because what you used to do, you found a script, you put it to your site using script tag, and then you start typing code. It was the age of artisanal JavaScript. So we did a lot of small pieces by hand ourselves. So it wasn't very industrial. It wasn't very professional. So we just did these little scripts. And work now. Boom. So what it looked like. Yeah, we did script tags, and then eventually people wrote jQuery, prototype, MooTools, little utilities. Out of these, jQuery is still alive. Can you raise your hand if you're using jQuery still? Nobody is using jQuery? We have one jQuery user, so it's still being used. So, that's the thing. These things that were invented 10 years ago still live. Then we started doing apps. So first it was so that we had, web was for content. So it was for about sharing content with others. And then we started adding interactivity to the pages. And then we figured that, well, it's actually an application platform. And it's because of this divide that we have document-oriented system, and then try to do applications on top of that. That's why we have all these little problems. Like if you think about CSS and how we're still fighting about how do I use CSS to style my app. it wasn't designed to be, it wasn't designed for apps to begin with. And then, in 2009, something interesting happened. We got Node.js. I think it was Node.js 0.10 or something I started using. And I'm still using Node.js today. And that was kind of the thing that started shifting things. It's because of this. So you go to npm install. So instead of writing your own little piece of code, you go npm install. And now you have your functionality more or less. It started from Node.js side of the fence. So it was essentially designed to make it easier to write Node.js apps. But then front-end developers found it. And that's how it became the standard for distributing packages made of JavaScript. And this is what happened. So in 2010, it was tiny. I mean, there was literally no packages because it was invented, of course. Other languages had their own package managers. But then what happened, we had this acceleration. So today we have over 1 million npm packages. And you see it's growing really fast, so it's not going to take many years to have 10 million. So now we live in a world powered by JavaScript. And what it means is that we have satellites. It's a Finnish satellite running Node.js. So we're using Node.js in space, which is amazing. So 10 years ago, if someone told you that 10 years later there's a satellite running Node.js in space, they will not have believed you. We use Node.js in planes. So I mean, don't worry, it's not for the controls. It's only for the entertainment. So I'm happy they do it, but not in a like full way. And then we use it for beer. So we use JavaScript as an excuse to make our conference beer. And npm, it looks like this. So if you find all npm with 3D, you can find this 3D visualization, and then you can start digging into npm. And it's a big mess. So you have all these different things, all different sizes. And what I did, because I gave this presentation first time a couple of years ago, so I think here you can see the impact of React and other front-end libraries, because we started getting into this component thinking that let's do UI component for everything. This is from the past that about half have tests, because then you start thinking, I have 1 million packages, and only half have tests, so what the rest have? And only a part even have README file license repository data. So it feels like there's a lot of black matter in npm. And out of packages, there are lots of old ones, like dead ones that are not moving, that are just abandoned. So then this brings a couple of questions. I mean, if you take 1 million packages, how many of these 1 million are something that you might want to even use? So maybe the actual figure is 100,000 or even less. And it's possible that because it's so easy to publish to npm that we went like quantity first. So we get a lot, but a lot that's not much value. There is a security project for Node, but I don't think we have quality project, but that will be very, very useful to have as well. And this is the problem, I think, because it's very easy to publish. So you figure out the name that's not taken, and npm publish, and you go. There's a drinking game for this. So first, you think of a name, and then you try. If the name is on npm, well, now you have to drink. But you should not try this, because it's too easy to lose in this game. Remember left path? What happened, author decided to remove a package from npm, and this broke everything. So after left path, it has not been possible to unpublish as easily as before. So now it's like 24-hour period or so. So it's more strict. There was a crypto stealer. The point was that someone published a package, or I think it was dependency of something. So he got a like popular package that's somewhere in the tree, and published a crypto stealer. And the point was that the stealer it finds a certain file on your computer and steals your bitcoins or whatever they call them these days. So there are this kind of little things. And this one I got myself one day. So there was this guru mediation error. You can figure out the history. It's somehow related to Amiga times, but that's like 20, 30 years ago. And then you have things like this. So the former CEO said that we have money till 2020. And then you get this question, what happens if NPM doesn't exist? And that's why people got a little worried. So for this reason, we have more options coming up. So first of all, we have mirrors, like the NPM Open Registry. We have GitLab doing something. We have GitHub doing something. We have former CDO of NPM doing something. So this is registry that can potentially replace NPM. Verdaccio is a good tool to know, because it's what we call NPM proxy. So you run Verdaccio on your own computer, and then you can publish to this registry without actually publishing to NPM. So if you ever had issues with NPM link, this can solve it. Because all you do is to publish your proxy, publish to proxy, and install from proxy. And this is how you get free private packages without getting to the subscription. And when you start dealing with multiple registries, there's a tool called NRM that might be useful. So, about the language. So the image is more about Babel, Babel's tower and all that, and that's pretty much what we're doing. So how it went, 1995, as I mentioned in the beginning, Brendan Eich spent 10 days creating the first version of JavaScript for Netscape. And then you had some standardization steps, and you had competition with the Inner Explorer and all that. And then we had ES5. And what happened next is interesting, because nothing happened for a while. After ES 5.1, we had this period of time that nothing happened. And then we started getting yearly releases. So the big release was 2015, ES 2015, because we got modules and a lot of needed features. And now we start getting yearly releases, so with not so many features at once. And there's this standard process you can follow, but now we get like steady, it's easy to follow. Shit. My theory is that ES 2030 is going to look like this. So when it comes to language design, it's more easier to add than to remove. So you can always add features, but then you notice that you added something that's maybe you don't need it. You more or less have to leave it to the language, because you cannot break people's code. So my feeling is that in language development, it's often like this. What also happened over past years is that bigger and bigger companies started using JavaScript, or people began to develop bigger applications using JavaScript. And this led to the frameworks we have. So that's why we have Angular and React and Vue and whatever. Actually, Vue is exception because it started more like as a private project. But the point stands that we have very big companies using JavaScript at the core of their business. What's interesting to follow is language popularity. So even 2015, JavaScript was on the top right with Java. So this they measure popularity using ranking on GitHub, amount of projects, and then Stack Overflow questions. And in here you can see that JavaScript is already very popular, but what's upcoming is TypeScript. So this is 4 years ago. And now TypeScript is catching up. So I think this tells about the trend that there's interest in having something that's more typed than JavaScript, that's very loose by definition. And also we have this thing, WebAssembly, which likely is not going to replace JavaScript, but it's going to complement it. So when you have this use case where you need high performance, you might use WebAssembly for that portion, and then JavaScript for the rest. Or one use case is that you have old app that you want to port to the web, and then you will go through this approach. Again, a couple of thoughts. So what's the cost of this growing complexity? Because we add features to JavaScript, but what's the actual price for this? Because let's say you get a couple of developers using JavaScript, and my theory is that they use different features. So they might not even know the features that other developers are using so well, because they use a different subset of the language. But this might be fine as well. And did anyone ever use CoffeeScript? Remember CoffeeScript? Yeah, I used it for one project a little bit. Then I lost the client. But the point was that we used to have CoffeeScript for a while because it provided better ergonomics to the language. So it made it a little nicer to write JavaScript. But the point is that what happened to CoffeeScript is that the standards bodies caught up and eventually took the best features of CoffeeScript and integrated into JavaScript. So my feeling is that the community has to try different things on the bleeding edge, try different approaches, and then the standards bodies, what they have to do is to pick the ideas that fit the language the best. So there's some kind of balance between experimentation and standardization. And this is also something that's happening with the web platform. So people experiment with different approaches, different frameworks, and then we notice that all those frameworks are doing this one thing, or they're replicating this one thing. Maybe we should standardize that. So that feels like the way the web platform develops. I think one example that's still in progress is this concept of observables. So we have RxJS and people using these observable approaches. But if observables were in the standard, that will be very good for these libraries because they will have to implement less. And now we have this, let's say, pressure from TypeScript. So one thing I realized about TypeScript a while ago is that it's 7 years old. So it's quite old language, but it feels like language needs certain amount of age for it to grow popular enough to have impact. But with TypeScript, it's good to remember that it has a big company behind it. So Microsoft is really pushing it, and I think that helped a lot to generate this interest. And it also evolved a lot over time. So it improved, and it still keeps improving. One of the interesting things is that these days we actually use, as developers, we sort of shifted into Microsoft stack. So you have TypeScript, you have VS Code, and maybe you use their cloud services. So it's just one bit by bit, you moved into Microsoft stack. But I think that's how it goes. So when it comes to TypeScript and JavaScript, maybe we see some influence. So maybe, I don't expect that JavaScript becomes like strictly typed, but maybe we might see something that's somewhere in between. So that will mean that it will code up with TypeScript a little bit, and maybe change the compile target for TypeScript. But we see how that goes. Then you start asking questions like, is TypeScript the end? I'm not so sure, because TypeScript is something so you have JavaScript, and then you type TypeScript around it. So it's like this type you use to fix things. And sometimes it's not the best way to design things, to take something and wrap it around some bubble or whatever. Another way to design is to start from scratch. And I think the ReasonML, it's from, I mean, it's let's say a version of OCaml, which is an old language. And in ReasonML, what you get is this gradual typing. So you define certain types, and it's a strong, very good type inference. So end up typing not so much. So you define certain types, and the language figures out the rest. So it can be that we see something like this coming up over the next 5 years to challenge TypeScript. And then you get this question, what if we started from scratch? What will the web look like? I mean, if you could start today and start designing with all the knowledge we have, because the problem with designing things is that now you have user base, now you have made all these decisions, and there are decisions you cannot change. But if you start from scratch, you can forget about the past and literally design everything anew. So what will it look like? It might look like this. So there is what they call pika, which is CLI, CDN, CI, and CD, like this environment. And this is a tool that promises to replace tools like Webpack. So, and how it does this is by leveraging the new ES6 or ES 2015 module definition. So maybe we lose support for old browsers, but at the same time, because we have new axioms, we gain something in return. And because they leverage the new module definition, it means that instead of having 1 million packages, you have only 70,000 packages to use, but this might be enough. And you can see it's a hockey stick, so it's growing quite fast. So over time, we get more and more ES6 or ES 2015 compatible modules. And this might be something that's going to change things over the next years. Then we can also think about Node.js. That, yeah, we have been using Node.js for a while, but what if we could replace Node.js? And as you might infer from the name, if you swap things around, you get Deno. Not Node, but Deno. And here they do exactly this. So they change the axioms, and now you have environment that supports TypeScript out of the box. So I tried it once. I didn't get it quite running. It was difficult to set up. But I think over time, this might become a challenger. And I think a lot of future technologies or future techniques, we already have them today. We just don't know which ones are going to be the ones that go mainstream. So on the bleeding edge, you can already see signs of the future. But of course, it's impossible to tell what things are going to catch up, or what are going to be like really big things in a couple of years. And that's it for me. Čekuče.